You're listening to The Crypt, and I'm delighted to be joined on the show today by Kane Hodder. Kane has a long list of movie credits to his name, including Hatchet, Wishmaster, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. He also portrayed serial killers Ed Gein and the BTK. But to horror fans everywhere, Kane will always be Jason Voorhees from the Friday the 13th franchise. So thanks so much for joining me today, Kane.
It's my pleasure, Rita. I'm glad to be on with you.
Well, firstly, you started out in your career as a stuntman. Can you tell me how you made the crossover to acting?
You know, I never really anticipated or thought that would happen. I just wanted to be a stuntman. I loved the idea of getting paid to do crazy things and, challenging athletic things. So I always loved the stunt business and just thought, well, I'll make a career out of that and I'll be happy. Then because of my, size or whatever abilities, I had been stunt coordinating and working in film as a stuntman. And I did a movie with Rennie Harlan called Prison. And I was the stunt coordinator on it. Rennie directed it. And I was asked to play a character at the end of the movie in a full body makeup, full body prosthetics. And John Beekler was the makeup effects supervisor on that film. And he asked me, hey, would you like to do this? Just a one-day shoot, full body makeup. And I said, sure, I haven't done anything like that before. And based on that one day in makeup, because it's quite a challenge to work in prosthetics like that.
Oh, God, yeah.
Very uncomfortable and hard. You have to change your acting way to make it read because, you think you are doing something subtle, but in the makeup it doesn't show, so you have to exaggerate things. But John Beekler liked how I worked in the makeup, and the following year he was hired to direct Friday the 13th Part 7, and because in his story, Jason had to do a lot of stunts because the girl had telekinetic powers and made all kinds of things happen to Jason, which was something new. Jason was usually creating the mayhem for other people. This time he had to go through a lot. So John thought, well, first of all, Jason needs to be a stuntman this time.
Yeah.
There had been in the past stunt guys that played Jason, but nobody had ever done it more than once. The first 6 movies was a different guy every time. So John said, hey, this is the guy I'd like to play Jason in my film. And again, because it's full body prosthetics. And so I had to do a screen test and everything. And, eventually I was given the job. And based on that performance in that film, the next 3 directors just said, nope, I think Kane's the guy. So I did play Jason 4 in a row. And that completely changed my career. I started doing dialogue things after that, and now that's mostly what I do.
Well, of course, like as you said there, you were the first person to play him for more than one movie. What do you think it was about your portrayal of the character? You're generally everybody's favourite Jason. So what do you think you brought to the character that others didn't?
It's kind of a difficult subject because it sounds like, it's hard to say why I thought I was more successful, but from what I'm told by fans and stuff, it seemed to be more natural. And that is something I always did strive for, is to make it look like I'm not acting. Because it's so hard to be scary without your face, facial expressions, and without your voice.
Well, that's it.
2 major tools that actors use to be intimidating. You take those away, now you have to look scary by just the way you stand. And most often, a guy will think, God, I really have to look scary, so they'll try too hard, and then it'll look like they're acting, in my opinion. And people say that it just seemed like it was more natural, and I guess I tend to agree. It did seem like it was more natural, because a lot of times I would go into a scene not knowing exactly what I was going to do. So in that, you approach a scene like that, there's no way it can look rehearsed.
Now, one of my listeners, Finbar Hoban, he's from Castlebar here in County Mayo, and he's a massive fan of yours. And he wanted me to ask you, what was your favourite kill as Jason?
Very good question. I have actually, from our information, it seems like I have murdered more people on film than any actor in history. Period.
Yeah.
Murders. We're talking about murders, not talking about a good guy that guns down 30 bad guys at once.
Yeah.
I'm talking about one by one murders. I don't think anybody has ever killed any more people than me. So the answer to that is my favorite Jason kill that I ever performed was the sleeping bag.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I'm killing somebody with something that's not even a weapon. So that's kind of cool. I always loved that scene.
Oh, it's an awesome scene.
And my all-time favorite kill, that used to be my all-time favorite kill until I did the first Hatchet movie. And when I grabbed the lady by her jaw and rip her head apart,
as you do,
that has now eclipsed as my favorite kill. But sleeping bag is still my favorite Jason kill and number 2 kill. But, you got to admit there was some pretty creative kills, and that's, nothing to do with me. It's the writers and the makeup effects people. Frozen head in Jason X was good. Punching the guy's head off in part 8. There's some pretty fun kills.
I'd love to be in a room with all these guys when they're thinking up different ways of killing people.
Yeah, I know. What is that process, I wonder? You think I'm scary? How about the guy that dreamed it up?
Exactly. And then, what I'm going to ask you next now, you've probably been asked a million times, but when two of the greatest horror characters met in Freddy vs. Jason, they cast Ken Kirzinger as Jason. Now, personally, I thought this was a bad move because if it's not broke, don't fix it. So, how did you feel about it, and what did you think of his portrayal?
Obviously, I was very, very disappointed because I had been given the script and told that I was doing the movie by a New Line executive. I had a lunch meeting with this person. They gave me the script, said, we're finally doing this, and I was like very excited. And then they hired a director, and I started getting weird vibes, and, ultimately I was replaced, and I was never given a reason why. I mean, it isn't that they were obligated to give me the part, but after, 15 years known as the character, to then replace me, at least tell me what your thinking is.
I know, it didn't.
Whether I agree with it or not, doesn't matter. I just thought maybe I was at least owed a reason why I was replaced. And to this day, I've never been told, so I'm not sure why the choice was made. And, and that's the one I really wanted to do. I mean, let's face it, I was Freddy's arm in the end of Jason Goes to Hell, coming out of the ground, grabbing the hockey mask. That was my arm. So, I had been looking forward to that since that movie. And so I was very, very disappointed. And,
I'd say as were the fans.
And, the portrayal was fine. It looked, it was different than what I would have done. Let's just say that.
Well, then, of course, Hatchet then has got a massive following, and that paid homage to the 80s slasher movies. And the series creator, Adam Green, he had a rule, no CGI. Now, I think keeping it old school is definitely best. What do you think of, all the movies that are out today? There's just far too much CGI in them. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I'm always a fan of practical effects, but I'm not so anti-CGI that I think it should never be used. It has its place. Sometimes it enhances a scene or maybe makes something slightly safer for the stunt person, whatever. I hate when it's overused, certainly, and I still would like to see more, practical effects, but it is what I loved about the Hatchet movies. Everything was real effects, and it takes longer to shoot and everything, but that's what the people really like. That's why people responded to the first movie so well, I think.
But that's it, and it's great when you're looking at it and you're thinking, God, how did they do that? And it's not computerized. Then another great thing about Hatchet was all the horror greats that were in it. You'd Robert Englund, Tony Todd, Daniel Harris, and you even came up against Derek Mayers, who played Jason in the remake of Friday the 13th.
Right.
Have you actually watched? Have you watched the remake?
No, that's the only one I didn't watch.
No.
It just when I saw the trailer, I thought, that's not really how I picture Jason. So I just chose not to see that one. But Derek is a friend. We do, we've done other things together. We do conventions together all the time. He's a good guy. I think he probably did fine in the film. It wasn't his choice to do certain things, the way it was written. So I can't say anything about that. But it was fun to have the face-off in Hatchet 3 and, have it go down the way it did, because that pretty much shocked everybody. Because after we shot the movie and before it came out, I used to tell the fans, wait till you see the scene between Derek and myself. Yeah. You're going to be amazed. And so they're thinking, it's going to be a huge fight. And then it ends so quickly. I said, hey, I said you were going to be amazed. I didn't say anything else. And, the fact that I killed Jason, because he is the most recent. I killed Freddy Krueger in the first one. I killed Tony Todd. I killed R.A. Mihailoff, who was Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. He was in Hatchet 2. I killed him. So, put away some pretty legendary characters in those films. And Adam Green is a genius in my mind because of his writing and directing. Even at the beginning, he seemed to be born to do this. And it was just such a pleasure, and still is, to work with him, whether it be playing a character or just doing stunts like I did on Frozen. Yeah. I pretty much do everything that Adam does, and I couldn't be happier about it.
All your films, you're always playing the psychopathic killer nearly. What's it like for your family watching you playing that when you see Daddy at home and then see on the big screen?
For some reason, I can pull off the murderous rage very easily, and I don't know if it's accurate, but I think if you on one end of the spectrum, if you have most people's personalities, and the other end of the spectrum, you have a murderous, violent psychopath. Mm-hmm. I fall somewhere in the middle, and it's easier for me to get. It's a shorter trip for me to get to that murderous psychopath than most people. So I just find it quite easy to get there.
Do you know what I thought you were great in recently was Fear Clinic? Oh, that was brilliant. They're making a movie now.
That was a lot of fun. And, I've been working a lot with Bill Moseley lately, who I'm sure you know. And we did a movie this past summer in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, called Smothered, and it's a horror comedy where Bill and I and Don Shanks, who was Michael Myers in one of the Halloween movies, and R.A. Mihailoff, the one I talked about that was Leatherface, Malcolm Danar that he played Moochie in the Christine movie. He's in it, and a couple of great local actors from Louisiana. And the movie was written and directed by John Schneider, who was Bo Duke on the Dukes of Hazzard back in the day. A TV show I used to do stunts on, actually, so I knew John from that show. Yeah. But he wrote and directed a brilliant film where we play ourselves or versions of ourselves as horror has-been icons nobody cares about anymore, and we're bitter and pissed off. And
that sounds class.
Yeah, and we get hired to haunt a trailer park for Halloween season. As we're there, we start getting killed off one by one by a serial killer. And playing ourselves is fun anyway, in a different version. And the serial killer who is killing horror icons is a large-breasted hot girl.
Oh, no way.
So she's the killer killing us. So
when's that will be out? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's really, really well done. And John is just like Adam Green. He's a genius with story and And he's so good at coming up with something on the spur of the moment that would add so much to a scene that I'm very excited about that one coming out.
And when should we expect to see that?
I think later this year. And there's another one that I did with Bill Moseley also, where he and I played brothers. It's a movie called Old 37. And we drive an ambulance, a beat-up ambulance, around, and we respond to 911 calls before the real people get there, and we take the victims away and do horrible things to them. So
oh, that's another good one.
That one is not a comedy.
And also, like myself, you've a massive interest in the paranormal, and believe you're part of a paranormal investigation team called Hollywood Ghost Hunters.
Yes, I formed that ghost hunting group with my buddy Rick McCullum. He's a stuntman, and I've worked with him since Lone Wolf McQuaid back in 1982 or something.
Yeah.
We always worked together. So he and I decided to form a paranormal group of people that most of the members of our group are involved in making horror films. So it's kind of like see a group of people that normally scare others, see if we can get scared or encounter something creepy ourselves. And so Danielle Harris, Ari Mihailov, Adam Green, they're all members of the group. And we, hit all the hot horror paranormal spots around the country and sometimes other countries as well.
Have you ever been to Ireland?
Never have.
Oh, we've some great spots here. I'd go out. I've a group of friends. They're called Down Paranormal. They're from Northern Ireland, and I'd go out with them quite often. There's some great spots over here to go and see.
Yeah, I've always wanted to visit the country, but just haven't had an opportunity yet. And I had a friend that unfortunately he was a rock climber, and he was from here, but he had Irish heritage. And he was actually killed on a cliff somewhere in Ireland.
Oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, I mean, that's a number of years ago, but his name was Michael Reardon. Yeah, but, I've always wanted to visit. It's a beautiful country. I hear nothing but good things about it, and I'd love to come at some point.
Well, if you ever come over now, we'll have to bring you out with us on an
Yeah,
investigation.
sure, I'd love to. You got some long, very, very historic areas in your country that must have all kinds of paranormal activity.
Oh, lots of castles. Lots
Yeah.
of castles. But, well, look, I know you're busy. You're heading off to Australia, I believe.
I am. I'm leaving the day after tomorrow. I'm going with Bill Moseley and actress named Tara Reid and my buddy Rick McCullum again. He is going down there to help me with the stunts. So we're going to be gone for about 6-7 weeks, shooting a film called Charlie's Farm. Tara is a main character. There is a killer played by Nathan Jones, who's an Australian guy, huge person, and I play a character who is an ex-heavyweight champion that goes and confronts the killer. And there's a big fight scene in which you can probably imagine I don't come out on top of because I'm not playing the bad guy. But we're looking forward to that. It's, I've never been to Australia either, so it's going to be a fun trip.
That's a new experience. Well, God, it sounds like you've some great films coming up for us to see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun stuff coming up and a lot of cool characters that are things that you wouldn't expect to see me do in the past. So that's exciting for me.
We'll look forward to them. Well, look, I won't hold you any longer. Before I let you go, I just want to ask you, what is your favourite horror movie of all time and why?
Well, that's an easy one for me because if you didn't see this movie, and, unless you're my age, you didn't. If you didn't see this movie when it was first out in theaters, you don't have the same experience with it. The movie is The Exorcist. Now, that came out in, I believe, 1973 or 74, and there was so much hype in the news media about the movie, people saying they went to the theater and they got possessed, and the subject matter was so untouched at that time that it made it the most powerful film that I've ever seen, based on all of the hoopla that was going around about the movie. You were terrified before you ever went in the theater, and then it was really well done, and I still think it holds up this many years later. It's just unfortunate that people that are not old enough to have seen it in theaters at the time, you have no idea what the effect was. So that is my all-time favorite horror film.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you, Rita. It was my pleasure, and I hope to see you guys at some point in the future.